Hey y'all, it's Boden with the Research Assistance Center at the University of Alabama. I previously made a video detailing some of the common misunderstandings of APA 7 and some of the major changes from APA 6 to 7, and I hope that you found it informative. This video starts with a discussion about plagiarism and covers more advanced topics on reproducing or referencing works of other authors and publication ethics. It then moves to a discussion of APA reporting standards for quantitative and qualitative research articles. I hope that you enjoy.
Presenting the ideas of others as your own is plagiarism. APA 7th edition defines plagiarism as, quote, the act of presenting the words, ideas, or images of another as your own. It denies authors or creators of content the credit they are due. Whether deliberate or unintentional, plagiarism violates ethical standards in scholarship. This practice is a violation of scholarly ethics and institutional practices. Keep in mind that changing a few words but keeping the overall content of a reference the same, which is also known as patch writing, is still plagiarism. To avoid this, always give credit to a source when you paraphrase, directly quote from another work, refer to data or data sets of another author, reprint or adapt tables or figures from another author, or reprint any passage of text. Giving proper credit to the works of others provides a background of information to other scholars who read your work and enables them to fully understand the context of your writing and what informs it. Simply stated, proper references and citations increase the quality of your work. Have you ever read a publication by a scholar and noticed that they reference themselves? There's a reason for this. It's not shameless self-promotion. Rather, the author is avoiding self-plagiarism. APA 7th edition defines self-plagiarism as, quote, the presentation of your own previously published work as original. Doing this is an unethical practice because it makes the information or findings you present to appear more replicable or your conclusions more strongly supported. In the publishing world, this can lead to copyright violations. Institutionally, it can lead to severe disciplinary action. Submitting the same work as original in two different classes is a violation at many institutions. However, building on previous coursework into another course's project or thesis or dissertation may be permissible. If you're thinking about doing this, the best practice is to inform your current teacher or advisor of your plans and consult your institution's honor code for more information. In my previous video, I discussed some of the changes involving citation style from APA 6 to APA 7 and went over some of the most frequently misunderstood guidance for citations in the APA 7th edition. I'll now go over some more in-depth topics related to citation style that you'll find in the APA 7th edition. Many times, writers need to cite the same work repetitively throughout a paragraph or section of a paper. If a paragraph contains repetitive narrative citations, writers may omit the year in subsequent usage after including the year in its first instance. However, the year is always included in all parenthetical citations. Also, keep in mind that the abbreviation IBID is not used in APA style. The direct quoting of an author's writing requires the usage of double quotation marks around the quoted text. When doing this, always include the author, year, and page number in either a parenthetical or a narrative citation. For narrative usage, this should always be at the end of the sentence. The page number must always be accompanied by the year. It cannot stand alone, such as directly after a quote while the sentence continues on. Single page references are noted by a single P, and multiple page numbers are noted by a double P. Always separate page numbers with a single dash, and refer to the 7th edition's Table 8.2 for many examples of direct quotations. Many times, writers need to make small changes to direct quotations to fit the structure of a sentence. APA 7th edition allows writers to make some small changes to direct quotations with no explanation. For example, the first letter of the first word may be changed to upper or lowercase to fit the sentence, and punctuation marks at the end of the quotation may be similarly changed. Footnotes can also be omitted. Any other changes must be explicitly indicated by the author. To omit material from a quotation, use an ellipsis to show the words have been omitted in a quotation. However, do not do this at the beginning or end of a quotation. When making changes to directly quoted material, Use square brackets to include the changes or explanations that you insert in the quotation. For example, if adding italics for emphasis in an original quotation that did not contain the italics originally, use brackets to enclose the words emphasis added immediately following the italics usage. If a direct quotation contains citation in the original, these are included in the direct quote, but need not be included in the reference list of your paper. Many times writers find direct quotations in the literature they are consulting that have originated from other works. These are called secondary sources. Writers sometimes feel conflicted about whether or not to cite the original because they feel that it is disingenuous to do so as they have not read or consulted the original text. In this case, APA 7th edition recommends that if your source is a direct quotation from another work, it is best to find the original source and cite it instead of the secondary source. Secondary sources may be used if the original cannot be retrieved or located. This can be done by indicating the secondary source in a parenthetical or narrative citation. Many sources contain double quotation marks already inside the text that you want to cite. This is typically because the author is incorporating a direct quote from another author in their work. In this case, use single quotation marks to show this inside of your double quotation marks. Also, include the referenced work in the quote you're reproducing, but if it includes a parenthetical citation, don't include the citation in your references page. Direct quotations of 40 words or more are presented as block quotations. Block quotations do not utilize quotation marks, start on a new line indented 1/2 inch from the left margin, are double-spaced throughout, and contain a parenthetical reference after the final punctuation of the quotation. Writers may also choose to cite the author and year in a narrative format before the quotation and place the page number at the end of the quotation parenthetically. If the work referenced in a block quotation uses double quotation marks inside of it, they should also appear in your block quotation. Epigraphs are quotations used to introduce an article, book, chapter, dissertation, or other work. These are typically used by authors to set the mood or expectation for what follows in a section of a work or for the work in total. Epigraphs should appear before the first line of text and should be indented 1/2 inch from the left margin and do not use quotation marks. These works are typically not listed in your reference list unless they are used somewhere else in your text. However, authors should provide enough information after the epigraph, usually in the form of the author's name and the title of a book and a credit line that enables readers to find the work. This credit line consists of an M dash on the line after the quote and is aligned to the right margin. Also be sure to adhere to publisher rules when using epigraphs, as some publishers do not allow them for copyright reasons. If in doubt, ask. Quotations from research participants should appear as direct quotations or block quotations if needed, and do not need to be listed on your reference page. Be sure to abide by ethical considerations concerning confidentiality when reporting the words of your participants, such as assigning pseudonyms or de-identifying information as needed. Sometimes information such as school policies need to be referenced in a work for context, but the citation of such information could identify a participant or compromise a school's confidentiality agreement. In this case, reproduce the information, de-identifying information as needed, but do not reference the information in the reference list. Writers must take every possible step to ensure the ethical and accurate reporting of research. Data must never be fabricated or falsified. This includes the selective omission of relevant literature or reports, or the exclusion of participants without a valid methodological reason for doing so given by the author. The interpretation of findings from works hinges on the reader being able to understand the decisions that have been made during all steps of the research process. However, even in the careful preparation of a work for publication, still can result in errors being made. APA 7th edition provides guidance on what to do if such circumstances arise. The first step is to notify the publisher so that a formal correction can be issued by the journal. Sometimes problems with works are so great that the work must be retracted either by the author or by the journal. This is done to avoid other scholars spending valuable time on a flawed article. Authors should also avoid citing retracted articles. If this is done, be sure to include in your reference list notation that the article was later retracted. Authors are expected to retain data associated with a published article. Many journals and institutions have different requirements, and it's a good idea to be aware of what these are. Always plan ahead on how you will retain and share data that is collected before conducting research. This information is typically asked for by institutional research boards or similar organizations. If sharing data, the researcher has a duty to de-identify any personally identifying information that could be used to reveal or link a participant's identity. Researchers should also be aware of institutional and governmental regulations related to the sharing of data collected in a research project. Publication credit is an often hotly debated topic. For example, many students have questions about how they should receive credit for work done that results in the publication for an advisor or other researcher. This topic can seem taboo because of the inherent power dynamics between students and professors, or novice researchers and well-known established researchers. APA 7th edition provides guidance on how to navigate these complex issues. APA 7 states that, quote, authorship is reserved for persons who make a substantial contribution to and who accept responsibility for a published work. Individuals should take authorship credit only for work they have performed or to which they have substantially contributed. This means that authorship goes beyond the traditional labor of writing and extends to those who have made substantive contributions to a work. This may include formulating a problem or hypothesis, structuring study design, organizing or conducting analysis, or interpreting findings. Lesser contributions may be made known by the author of a work by including this information in an author note or footnote. The order of authors listed in a work should be decided on by all the authors who have contributed significantly enough to warrant authorship listing. The order of authors should reflect only the contributions of the persons involved in a work. This means that the status of a researcher is irrelevant to determining authorship order. Generally, the author that has contributed most significantly to a work is listed first, with other authors appearing as their contribution decreases. However, in some areas of scholarship, the last author appearing is the one who has contributed the most. Be sure to be aware of these standards, and when in doubt, ask. The overall advice on these issues is to have these conversations early in the research process so that the roles of the individual members of a research team are clearly defined. It is perfectly normal to discuss authorship order at early stages of the work, and researchers should not discourage others from having this conversation. Having this discussion early on can mitigate controversy at later and critical stages of the publication process, but these conversations can be revisited if the research team believes they are warranted. APA 7th edition puts forth a set of guidance on journal article reporting standards, also known as JARS, in Chapter 3. These standards provide guidance to authors on what should be included in a scholarly article. Many journals use JARS, but many do not. However, Chapter 3 is a useful reference for researchers of any level, but particularly for novice researchers who may wonder how to go about assembling the constitutive parts of a research paper or adapting projects from coursework into full-fledged published articles. We'll start with abstracts, which are common across all research designs. Abstracts present a paper's contents in brief summary. These are typically limited to around 150 to 200 words. The abstract serves as the reader's initial contact point with an article. It helps readers make an informed decision about the usefulness of an article to their own research or scholarly goals. Abstracts are dense with information and contain essential terms related to the research scope, method, theory, and conclusions depending on their application. APA 7th edition states that a quality abstract, quote, correctly reflects the purpose and content of the paper. Do not include information that does not appear in the paper body. It also states that good abstracts are non-evaluative. Abstracts are for reporting, not evaluating. Abstracts should be written in, quote, clear and deliberate language. Use verbs rather than their noun equivalents and the active rather than the passive voice. Conciseness is key for an abstract. They should be brief, and each sentence should be doing its share of heavy lifting. APA 7th edition provides specific examples for abstracts in empirical articles, replication articles, literature reviews, theoretical articles, methodological articles, and meta-analyses. Consult section 3.33 of the 7th edition for more information on these. Introduction standards are applicable to papers of all types. The introduction is used to provide a succinct description of the issues in the paper, their historical context, and the objectives of the study. Introductions frame what is being studied in the paper for the reader. A succinct review of historical literature provides adequate framing for your paper for the reader to understand the issues at hand and their historical significance. The objectives or goals of the study prepare the reader to understand what you hope to convey by your paper. Also keep in mind that a heading entitled Introduction is not needed because it's understood as the introduction. While abstract and introductions are somewhat standard across research types, certain types of papers have specific reporting standards that are covered by JARS. The JARS guidance in Chapter 3 of APA 7th edition is not meant to be exhaustive. Rather, these are minimum standards that apply to publications using JARS. As stated before, these standards also provide quality information for researchers of all types approaching writing a research paper even if they do not anticipate strict adherence to JARS. APA recommends that quantitative paper titles, quote, identify main variables and theoretical issues under investigation and the relationships between them, and, quote, identify the population studied. For the method sections of quantitative papers, APA recommends that, quote, method sections should report inclusion and exclusion criteria, including any restrictions based on demographic characteristics. It also states that authors should, quote, report major demographic characteristics, e.g., age, sex, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and important topic-specific characteristics, e.g., achievement level in studies of educational interventions. A quantitative method section should also provide sampling procedures, sampling size, power, and precision, measures and covariates, data collection, quality of measurements, instrumentation, masking, psychometrics, conditions and designs, data diagnostics, and analytic strategies. A quantitative results section should include discussion of participant flow, recruitment, and statistical and data analysis with accurate reporting of software used, as well as discussion about missing data if applicable. The discussion section of a quantitative paper should include support of the original hypothesis, similarity of results or differences reported by others, interpretation of the results, generalizability of the findings, and implications for future research. The titles of qualitative research papers should, quote, identify key issues or topics under consideration. Method sections of qualitative articles give a summary overview of the research design and provide a rationale for why it was selected by the researcher. It should also contain discussion related to study participants or data sources and information related to the researcher's background that is relevant to the study. When discussing participants, provide numbers, demographic data, and describe relationships and interactions that are relevant to the research. Participant recruitment should also be detailed in the method section, as well as participant selection with context and rationale of the researchers. Data collection and data analytic strategies can also be detailed in the method section to provide further context for the reader. Finding sections are used in qualitative articles to present the findings in a way that is compatible with the research design. Researchers may also present synthesizing illustrations if they are useful in organizing or conveying the findings. The discussion section of a qualitative article contains a description of the central contributions of the work and their significance, as well as identifying similarities to other research relevant to the topic. Authors should use this space to reflect on their findings and identifying strengths and limitations. They should also detail ethical dilemmas or challenges of the research and consider future implications of their findings. As stated before, the JARS guidance provided by APA 7th edition is not exhaustive. At most, these are minimum requirements. Furthermore, individual journals may have specific requirements that do not follow the guidance of APA 7. Make yourself familiar with those guidelines early to streamline the publication process.
So that wraps up our discussion of advanced topics of APA 7th edition, but keep in mind that there's always more to learn. Keep your copy of APA 7 handy when you're writing for coursework or for publication. It's a great resource, and being aware of its rules and guidance can help you save time overall. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Good luck with your research, and roll, qual, roll.